some conversations change you. Today's guest, Zoe Robson, turned her deepest pain into her life's purpose. From losing her father to pancreatic cancer to surviving 5 miscarriages, Zoe's decade in corporate couldn't prepare her for life's hardest lessons. But those experiences led her to create something beautiful, a company that restores dignity and comfort to adults living with incontinence. Get ready for raw honesty and incredible resilience. Hello and welcome, hackers, to another edition of the Leadership Hacks podcast. I am joined here today with Zoe Robson, who is an absolute superstar. I was fortunate enough for her to reply to my request, having seen a post of hers about her dear dad, Fred, and the journey that he had gone through battling pancreatic cancer. But there is more to Zoe than that story. Zoe has been a leader in corporate. She is an innovator and she is an entrepreneur. And I am so glad that we have got her today. Welcome to the show, Zoe.
Thank you very much, Joyvie. What an amazing introduction. I'll have to try and keep that bar high as we go throughout.
I'm sure you will. Zoe, as I said, like I was literally drawn to you through the story that you shared in LinkedIn about your dad and the journey he went on, which was very similar to my mother's. And for the listeners there, my mother also passed away of pancreatic cancer not too long ago. And so your story really did resonate with me. And then when I started to look through your profile, I immediately thought, this is an individual that I need to speak to and understand who she is and what has gone on. So I appreciate that you've been on a journey from Central St. Martin's to being a CEO of a company that you have created, and you've had to show extreme resilience through those times. But before we dive into the deeper parts of your story, can you tell me about the woman that you are now and how you've got to this stage? What has your career been like? What were those early days like for you, and what drove you?
Such a deep question. And I think the first thing is I am still a very, very driven individual, always as a young girl. I've always had a hyper focus on things that I really care about and I want to see improved. I mean, I can articulate that as an adult. As a young woman, I was probably, screaming and shouting a little bit more. But I've never been afraid to challenge the status quo, if you like. It used to get me in a lot of trouble at school. I've often been called too blunt throughout my career, that I need to soften things slightly. And I, thankfully I have, because I probably was a bit too extreme in the early years. But it's been my path has not been linear at all. Recruiters hate my profile, for example. They just, it's because it's so all over the place. So I did my degree at St. Martin's as a product designer. Then I started my first business. It was called Z Studio. We were developing proof of concept displays using printed electronics. It was very clever, very, very innovative. I just had no business experience whatsoever. Lots of grit and determination, but no commercial savviness whatsoever. Did that for 4 or 5 years, and then closed the business with my tail between my legs and got a job at the AXA Group. So it was an asset management company called Arcasas I worked for, and I worked there for 10 years. I started as a designer, a typesetter, graphic designer, and then worked my way up into innovation director towards the end. And it was a really good time there. I mean, we were, it was a very controlled, regulated environment, but there was lots of chance for creativity and to, push the boundaries a little bit as to what was possible within that industry. I did a lot of research. I mean, it was really interesting. It was a very interesting job, but I was starting to feel like there has to be more to life than a big paycheck. I do really miss that paycheck. I don't think I'll ever be paid that well ever again. But there has to be more to it than this. It was just getting, and I used to get very frustrated with the politics there, like any corporate. Like I mentioned, I've always been very direct and expect change and expect very high standards, and that often pissed off my clients. My peers, they got fed up with me. I got a little bit fed up with them, and so it was really after having I got pregnant during COVID, and then came back to the job and actually thought, this is probably a time where I want to set out on my own and do something a little bit different. I've been there a long time, and so I took the plunge and thought, just give myself a bit of time, think about what I want to do, and then founded the company in April. We started my journey. I mean, I can talk a little bit about Joyvie Health now, or if we want to come on to it later.
No, well, before we get there, because you've said something very interesting there to me that I would like to circle back to, which was, and I didn't catch the name of the company that you said, that the business that you started before going to AXA.
Z Studio.
Z Studio. You said you folded that company with your tail between your legs.
Yeah.
I heard and I gained great experience from that failure, which has put me in a better position all these years later to run a business. And my question, therefore, is what were the failures at that time, and what have been the lessons learned?
Yeah, so I probably should reframe that. You're absolutely right. So I learned how not to run a business. That's what I learned from Z Studio.
What was Z Studio? What was it doing?
So
Give us a bit more detail.
So there's this really cool material called electroluminescent panel. It's really cool. You run a current, you can print it, and you run a
Right.
current through it, and it lights up. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. We designed a little bit of tech to go with it, which meant we could make it interactive. We had these big displays on the wall, and parts of them were electroluminescent, and we'd run the current through, and we put in sensors. So as you walked past the wall, it kind of followed you. And this was like, 20 years ago. It was really innovative at the time. I mean, you can do all this sort of stuff now with much cleverer technology, drones or whatever. And we had a client, Unilever, Ian Burns, I think his name was. I think he might be retired now, but Ian Burns, he was such a champion, such an advocate, just really wanted us to do well. But we just literally every mistake I could have made as a founder, I made it. And I think people really gave me a lot of time and space because I was quite young, because I just had this huge amount of determination and grit. They could see the passion and the vision that I had. They just, I just wasn't bringing enough to the table. Like, I didn't even have a business plan. There was nothing mapped out. I didn't know what forecasting was. I didn't know anything to do with the commercials. I just thought, no, this is a really cool idea. Let's go and get some clients. So, it was a really fun experience. As I mentioned, I learned how not to run a business. I learned what you've got to have the foundations in place if you're going to be successful. And I think those foundations is actually what I learned at AXA. So I really did understand from others what it meant to bring a product to market, what it meant, what it meant to be compliant and regulated, what it meant to forecast into the future, and how that, manage cash flow and P&L and all of those really foundational, useful things to run a business. I learned it within quite a safe environment, in fact.
Yeah. And was it a culmination of all of those reasons as to why the business wasn't successful? And the reason I'm pushing you on this, Zoe, is because too often, and I've said this on other podcasts too often in this modern day world we live in, people see successful people and all they see is the end product and not the journey.
Yeah.
So when we do come on to your latest business, which I know is going to be a fantastic success, people will only see Joyvie and it's worked and it's brilliant. What they won't see is your failures before that point. Why did the business fail?
Product market fit. We ran out of cash. Like,
Right.
those are the two things. Just no more money and not really a problem to solve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a really cool idea. That's what it boiled down to, those two things. Yeah. There was no research. I literally came into that going, this is really cool material. Let's make a product with it. Everyone's going to love it. And it's just a classic mistake, because what I hadn't done is figure out the use cases, where we're going to be selling into hotels, commercial environments, or where we're going to be selling this in people's homes. One application of this was a rug. It was called Footloom. It was quite cool. We did actually win a few awards for it, Ideal Home Show. But we were just so confused as to what the application of this technology was going to be and how we'd monetize that, how we would scale that or grow that and scale it. So, I think just very uninformed about how we could take this, I read about it a lot, probably you do too, this whole product market fit, people bang on about it, having to solve a real need. And I do think it is so, so critical and very, very overlooked. Like,
Yeah,
and we can maybe talk about it later. I do a lot of bid writing. That's been my side gig as
sure.
I've got Joyvie off the ground. And I do see it a lot where it sounds very impressive. Product
Yeah,
technology is like, wow, mind blowing. But the nuts and bolts of it, what is the problem you're solving? How does it impact the environment, economics, the society? Is it hitting any of those points? Like, well, who's your niche market? Who's really going to buy this? Yeah, it's I think I really learned that lesson from Z Studio.
oh no, fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. You clearly have a burning sensation, desire, I'm not quite sure of the correct adjective here, for entrepreneurship and innovation. Were you born like this, or is this learned? What I mean by that question is I now know that I've always been an entrepreneur. When I was a young child and a young man, I didn't know what entrepreneur meant. I didn't, but I was it. I remember in my school days, I think I was in fact, year 8. I remember going to a shop and buying what was a Whopper bar at the time. It's like a bit like a Wham bar. And I bought a couple of them, and I'm walking to school, and my mate says, "Can I have it?" And I was like, "No, but we can go back to the shop and you get one." And he's like, "Oh no, just give me one." And I was like, "No, we can go back to the shop and you can get one, or no." And he said, "I'll buy it from you." And I said, "You what?" He said, "I'll buy it for you." I was like, "Okay, well, I bought it for 5 pence. I'll sell it to you for 10 pence. He gives me 10 pence, and away we go. And then I remember thinking, I wonder if anybody else would do this. So a few days later, I go to the shop, I buy 5 of these things, sell them at school for 20 pence. It's blowing my mind. I'm like, why are these people prepared to do this? But they are prepared to do it. And that is my earliest recollection of me showing that entrepreneurial spirit that I still have to this day. Is the
Amazing.
same true of you from an innovation perspective?
Oh, from an innovation perspective, 100%. Like, I think at my core, I'm just an extremely creative thinker, and a very broad term when I say creativity, like, looking at a problem in a very different from a very different perspective to most people. And I think that's my superpower. It's always been a superpower.
Right.
I see it different. I tend to see it differently, and that has in my career that's surfaced as I'm good at product design. I've done a bit of graphic design, although to be honest, never that good at graphic design as
Yeah.
full around than I ever managed to. But it's looking at things from a lens of that I don't know, that's just slightly different to everybody else. I think when I first recognized that was something that stood me out from the others, I think I can't remember how old I was. I must have been about maybe just turning 16, and I won. I think it's still running. It's called the Arkwright Scholarship. So I went to state school, and we had this Arkwright Scholarship. And I remember them saying, one of the tasks that we had to do was come up with different designs for something. I really can't remember. And I remember I filled up something like 3 pages, all with different designs of how we could solve this problem. I just, like, ideas just come and they come and they come.
It's your gift.
It's like, it really is. And that's not just from a design perspective, it's from every perspective. So if I get a no, it's never a no. It's just an excuse to try it a different way. And I've like that is just a relentless need for me to continually keep trying. And I'm not even talking about resilience. It's just my brain just goes, okay, we can't do it that way. Let's do it this way, or let's do it this way. Let's just keep trying and trying and trying. And I think it is just that different, being able to have that different perspective of a problem or a solution, and learning how to commercialize that. I mean, I don't know how this comes across, but it's not so much like I dismiss things quite quickly if I don't see a commercial route to it. So like early on with the Joyvie business, we weren't called Joyvie, we were called Hompost. We spent like 6 months developing
I prefer Joyvie.
Sorry?
I prefer Joyvie.
Yeah, well, no, Hompost was good because at the time we were exploring this idea of an automatic composter that
Right.
composted biodegradable nappies at home.
Sure.
So Hompost, like home composter. And apart from it being technically very, very challenging, we learned early on that it was going to be so niche, it was going to need to be quite expensive, and I just couldn't see the commercial route to market. I just couldn't see it at all. And so, it's gone. It's gone from my head. Let's move on. Let's pivot. Let's do something else. I don't want to do this anymore. So, and likewise in a less business sense, like I have the, I mean, I don't know if it's healthy or not. There's probably some psychological thing to say that that's slightly unhinged, but like if I know someone else is doing it, I don't want to, I need to be a bit different. Like I don't know if that's arrogance or ego. I don't know what that is, but the
No.
minute I go, oh no, someone else is doing something similar to me, it's like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want anything to do with it. I've got to be different. I've got to be
Yeah,
unique.
yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I don't know what that. There's some psychologists. They're probably like,
It's a superpower. No, it's a superpower. I don't think that's got anything to do with ego whatsoever. And I think when it comes to your ability to make decisions, you're the type of person I would want in the room.
yeah,
So that we're not dilly-dallying, we're not wasting time, we are being pragmatic, we're looking at the data, and we are making a decision, and we're moving on. I think that may be part of the reason why you rose through the ranks so quickly to director level within the organization that you worked for.
yeah,
But look, I know it hasn't been plain sailing. I know, and you spoke of resilience there. You are absolutely a resilient individual. I know we've had a conversation off camera, and you've told me that you have faced multiple miscarriages alongside building your career and how. And I guess my question to you there is, and I've had conversations with various women now where I actually didn't quite understand the impact, um, naively, the impact having a miscarriage can have on a woman's body, but also mentally, and to having done that several times, how has that shaped you as an individual? How has that shaped your resilience and the way you move forward?
don't know. Yeah, I mean, first of all, yes, I would say I'm extremely resilient. Second of all, to anyone listening, having a miscarriage it's just a really, really horrible thing to go through on so many levels. It's hard to articulate. And this is coming from someone that, I met my husband quite late. We're in our late 30s, and I didn't have my daughter till I was 40. And I kind of already had this idea that I wasn't going to have children. It settled in my head that we weren't going to. So I was comfortable with the idea of not having a child. Miraculously, we got pregnant, and we're like, oh yeah, we definitely want this. Like, let's 100% want to do this. And then, our daughter was born, and she's an absolute delight. And since then, I've had quite a few miscarriages, and it just gets harder and harder and harder, because you put so much hope into that. There's so much hope and beauty in creating life and giving birth, and it's the sense of loss is profound, even though that it's profound in a way that I can't really articulate it. And that's this kind of psychological side. But then the physical side, like, God, trimester 1, you are just utterly exhausted. Like, I can't describe how tired you can feel from being pregnant in those first kind of 6 to 12 weeks. It's just horrendous. Like, all the energy is just sapped from every single aspect. And then to get to the end of that and lose the baby, I don't know, it's just on every level it gets harder and harder. So, I mean, my husband and I, we kind of made a decision, like, let's just be one and done, because it's just too hard. It's like, emotionally, it's too hard. Physically, it's too hard. We have this beautiful little girl who's perfect. Let's just be very happy with our lot. And, it's just, I think, yes, you need resilience to get through that. Equally, I think there's also, it's also absolutely fine not to be resilient and to lean into that grief and pain. For many people, I think that it's, you should just take a moment to pause and think about the loss, and or the way that you can deal with it. It's horrible. It's not very nice. It's a really horrible experience.
I appreciate you being open and vulnerable on this subject matter. It's something that I personally, with my wife, haven't experienced. I've got family members who have experienced it. I've had people who work for me who have experienced it. Some I don't hear about it until years after, which really pains me, because I hate the thought of people suffering in silence. I really do. And I have always been an empathetic individual who will look to support as much as I can in any capacity that I can. But equally, I think I'm speaking for men who are in a similar position or who have been in a similar position to me. We need to gain more knowledge on this so that we can be better supportive during periods of womanhood like this.
Yeah.
So no, I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Well, I think being able to raise awareness of it is, probably a good thing. I mean, some people don't want to talk about it, and also, early pregnancies, you tend not to say anything anyway,
Mm,
for for number of, this being one of the reasons. So it can be very isolating because you are very much going through it. You're going through all that excitement and joy, and then you're going through that all that loss and grief very much alone because you're not really meant to talk about being 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 weeks pregnant. And it is tough.
yeah. No, really appreciate that. Zoe, Joy, we've spoken about it a couple of times, and I know that your dad was an inspiration for this company. But I'd love to know about your dad. I'd love to know about Fred as the individual, as the dad, as the man that he was. What made him laugh? What annoyed him? What part of his character do you see living on? Who was Fred? Bring Fred to life for us all.
Oh God, you're such a wonderful man, and I really like the way that you frame it because I haven't thought about it that way. And like, how does he live on through me? That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I will take that away on my journeys with me. Fred was a working class man. His dad was a butcher. His dad died when Fred was very young. By the way, we've always called our dad Fred. It's a weird thing, but Fred was his name. He wanted us to call him Fred. Fred it was. Yeah, he a very bright young boy. He won a scholarship into a private school, and and in fact, I had these conversations with him in January this year when we just talked about his life, so it's quite fresh in my memory. But he said he remembers at this private school the first time that he saw one of his friends drive up in I don't know, it was like a Porsche or something like that, like dropping their son off in a Porsche. He said to me at that point, he said he remembers at that point he knew where he wanted to go. He wanted to have the Porsche, he wanted to succeed in life, and he really did in many respects. Like a very, very diligent man. Like his work ethic was incredible. He also pushed boundaries. He ran his own business for a large portion of his career. So, I definitely think I take away his work ethic. And his, he's very, very practical, logical man. So I would go to him all the time. I've got this problem, and it was this running joke, always be, well, you've got 3 options, 1, 2, 3, like, which are you going to choose it type thing. It was very, he was very direct and no fluff, astute man, from the business side. And then from a dad's side, right, he was our dad, and he was just the most generous person with his time and with his love. And he really wanted me and my older sister, to be independent thinkers, to stand up for ourselves. He was just such an advocate, always that drive of, you can do anything you want to. Don't let anyone tell you no, which, I mean, I never really had that problem, but
Yeah.
I think, I'm very much like my dad in a lot of respects. And I do owe him my grit, my determination, my, ability to not suffer falls, my confidence in difficult situations. I owe it to him, really, because he was a role model, and he will continue to be the role model. And, but one of the hardest things I find about him passing away is that I can't tell it. Like he's not here to see this bit, because I just know, God, he would be so incredibly happy about it. Yeah, he was honestly a wonderful man.
And you talking about him being incredibly happy about it. I wonder what made him happy. What were his hobbies? What brought the man joy?
Oh, reading. He liked to read a lot. He was not a people person.
Okay.
People annoyed him quite a lot. So he would tend to. I mean, he was a big fitness person, so he would, exercise was a big passion for him. Cooking was a big passion. Reading. He was a massive bookworm, so he used to read an awful lot. Those are the sorts of things that, my mum made him happy. It's lovely to say that after 50 years, I mean, it would have been their anniversary on this coming weekend.
Wow.
50 years of marriage, they still held hands, took the piss out of each other. They made each other happy. It was, just cars made him happy. Not that, I mean, we didn't ever have the expensive cars, but you know, he liked cars. He had lots of model cars. He used to like to build model engines and things like that. So yeah, there was lots
They were
of,
the things that brought him joy.
yeah, he was a quiet man. Well, he kind of had to be quiet because he had three very strong women
Yeah,
growing up.
bless him.
So yeah, I know. Just, you know, very quiet, very unassuming, but very astute, switched on, hugely intelligent man. And I miss him, if I'm honest. It's a
Yeah, no, I get it. I completely get it. I know certainly with my mother, and I've said this on a podcast before, rightly or wrongly, judge me world. I rightly or wrongly, I did everything to make my mother proud. That was
yeah,
she was literally my number one goal, even having children, having a wife and everything else. It was always, I just wanted to make, whatever I did, I wanted my mother to be proud of what I had done. And when my mother passed away, I was left in this limbo, this place of not quite knowing what my purpose was and not knowing, and something had been taken away from me. And every now and again, even though I am a grown man, I understand how the world works, I just want to pick up the phone and call her
yeah,
because her phone number is still in my phone and I just want to call her. And I know I cannot, but I still want to do it. And that's something that mentally I struggle to get my head around. But it's because she was so influential on my life as Fred was on yours. And I think for the both of us, we've both watched pancreatic cancer steal someone we love away. When Fred received that diagnosis, what went through your mind and how did you prepare for something that felt impossibly unfair?
and um, Fred started losing weight, like a lot of weight quickly. Sort of, I don't know, it was March last year, and the doctor said it was IBS, and you know, and Fred was very always taking care of himself. Like he always ate a very good diet. He kept a diary on what he ate. He did a lot. He worked out a lot. Like very healthy man, fasting and all this. He was quite regimented um in his daily activities in order to keep himself healthy, which, you know, the irony of that is just it's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
But he was also quite in the nicest possible way. My dad could be quite grumpy.
right,
um and I remember him going on this crazy diets and getting quite moody, probably because his sugar level was so low. And
sure.
I remember saying to him, just fucking eat something, like stop,
Yeah,
like eat something, like you're not eating enough. You can't go on these weird protein only diets for like where you're only eating sausages for 7 days in a row, because
sure.
of course you're unhealthy. And so I was quite a little bit dismissive of it. I got quite annoyed with him, but I think he probably knew that he had cancer at that point. So this kind of weird, you know, he obviously was reading things online to say, you know, ketosis diet kills
Yeah.
cancer, and was trying all of this stuff. So when the actual diagnosis came, I don't think it was a shock to him.
Mm,
I didn't know survival rates of pancreatic cancer at the time. I and I think we spoke about this earlier, similar to you. I just assumed, very similar in fact, that this is gonna be fine. He'll get over this because, you know, look how fit and healthy he is. He was lifting weights only a couple of months ago. Like this
yeah.
can't happen to Fred. He's always been the healthiest man that I've ever known. And then we did a bit of research and it just floored us because and it's weird. It was just the minute we got the diagnosis, it's like almost in his brain just kind of went, okay, you don't need to pretend anymore. Let's go.
Right.
Like, let's just let it go. And his decline was so fast. And I think that was just something that you just cannot prepare for. Like within a month of
Yeah.
getting that diagnosis, he was really not getting out of bed, dreadfully thin. Oh, just difficult to talk about it. Just utter shock, horror, powerlessness. Just how on earth are we going to get through this? Like, yeah, it was really tough.
Yeah, it's brutal. And I know we talked off camera about our experiences, and certainly similarly for myself, when we were sat in myself and my brother were sat in the doctor's room with the oncologist, and they were explaining to my mother that she had pancreatic cancer. We were very dismissive of it, as in me and my brother were. I
Yeah,
didn't know anything about pancreatic cancer. But I knew my mum, so that's all I needed to know. I
yeah.
was like, yeah. Okay, pancreatic cancer. Mum beat pancreatic cancer. Done. Can we go? Can we go now? And then you start to do your research and you start to realize that of the cancers that one may get, it's one of the worst, if not the worst. And then reality starts to set in. I think my journey with my mother was different because I think from diagnosis to her passing away was about 2.5 years.
Right. Okay.
Um, and yeah, so we were, and through that period, I wouldn't even say I was hopeful. That whole "it's mum" thing, she's beating it, just came back. My thoughts were just being reinforced. Okay, it's a killer cancer, but mum is doing what mum does, and everything is going to be fine.
Yeah.
But everything wasn't fine, and certainly for the last 6 months of her life, it was really challenging. It was challenging to see, challenging to support, and challenging to hear my mum talk, who was a devout Christian, and but she had got to the point where she'd had enough of the suffering and she was ready for God to take her, and she was ready for God to take her before I was ready for God to take her away from me. So that was certainly a challenging time and a challenging moment, but it's one that we had to deal with there. Between myself and my brother, we were primary carers, and we also had nurses who really did the majority of the caring. But it was still challenging. Obviously, Fred has left behind a wife and daughters. For that caring element, what did that look like in those days where he was nearing the end?
Goodness. I mean, my mum, her name is Ruth, probably the unsung hero of all of this. And much like millions of caregivers that are like yourself, that are left to do a lot of the care giving, which ranges from the emotional support, but also the physical elements. I mean, I guess we'll get onto it, but changing nappies because there's been a loss of bodily control, functional control in the body, to managing the medication, to managing food and drink. I mean, it's just suddenly your mum was thrown into this caregiver role completely unprepared, and whilst coming to terms with the fact that she's about to lose her partner of 50 years. I can't imagine. I just don't understand the experience. Fred's passing away in one way. For mum, it must, I mean, we've spoken about it since, but just so much terror mixed with, especially around the nappies, like there's so much shame and not knowing how to do it properly. And she could see his embarrassment. I don't think she felt embarrassed as such. There's nothing dignified about those end moments of life, and I really think that she found that very, very difficult, more so than she ever let on. I mean, yeah, there are a few times where she sobbed, and I mean, I actually didn't cry very much at all, and I haven't either, which I don't think that means I'm heartless bitch. I think it just means that I'm compartmentalizing, and we'll
Yeah,
deal
yeah,
with all that later. But
yeah.
certainly lots of times where mum would cry, and that's also a very difficult thing to see as a child. See your parent break down and sob. Like, it's the first time I've really seen my mum sob. Another very strong woman. I think she just did the most remarkable job, the most important job, without complaints, without any, just got on with it. Just got on with it. And what an absolute heroine. She is my heroine for that. I mean, what an incredible woman to be able
Well, I
to
think it's
do
a
that.
testament to the true person that your mother is. I'll often say you th you will see who a person is in, the deepest and darkest times, but when there are no cameras, no eyeballs, no nothing, and what your mother was doing in Fred's final months it was just pure love out of her heart for her husband, who she had been with and obviously had two wonderful children, and she didn't need any recognition. She wasn't doing it for any recognition at all. She just wanted Fred to be as comfortable as he possibly could during a very difficult time. And it's not easy. I know one of the things that I kept up, people would always say to me is, "Mate, you've got to be strong. Keep on being strong." And I can remember there being evenings where I was like, I don't want to be strong anymore because
Yeah.
this is really, really hard. It is really hard. You talk about your dad turning away in shame because of some of the care that your mother had to give for him that you may have been privy to too. Uh, but I think that may have equally been the time when the innovator in you met the daughter in you, and the idea, the seed was sown around Jovi and Joyvie and the ideas. Can you just talk me through through this despair to where you are now with Joyvie and what's the why? Why are you doing this? And what is it? What is it you're doing?
So Joyvie is a patent pending fecal incontinence brief. Okay, so it's a design that prevents feces from touching the skin, and that in turn reduces infection, it improves dignity, and reduces the caregiver burden. We actually started the journey back like early 2024. I was redesigning nappies in general because my daughter suffered really severe nappy rash. Also, if you look at the general design of a nappy, they're not great. You know, they're environmentally they're really, really bad. They trap feces against the skin. It causes nappy rash, or like the medical term is incontinence associated dermatitis. Basically, the pathogens and the moisture break down skin essentially. So we were already on this journey to redesign nappies because I was just fed up with it for them being such a shitty design. Excuse the word. And then there was this day in January. End of January. And I remember it vividly. So, I mean, Fred had to, it was very, very quick. He went from standing upright, walking around to, not being able to get up and having to wear a nappy. The loss of dignity in that 4 weeks was so severe. And he hadn't lost his mind.
Mm.
I mean, he was on quite a few drugs by that point. So it's not like he was very 100% clear in his head. I think there's drugs make you hallucinate a little bit sometimes.
Sure.
But he was still very lucid. He understood what was going on. And he hated wearing a nappy. He hated the feeling of feces and urine on his skin. He hated being a burden on mum. He was deeply ashamed and embarrassed that she had to change him like a baby. I mean, just imagine what that's like. You just can't possibly, it's such a hard thing to get your head around. And it's just a stark reminder of why it's happening. This is happening because I'm about to die. I mean, God, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So anyway, this one day, he needed the toilet. He didn't want to go in the nappy. So he tried to get up to use the commode that was right next to his bed. And he fell. And mum called me because I only lived down the road in floods of tears. I'm round there, can't lift him because, he's a big man. So we had to call the hospice staff on their way, but it was a good 45 minutes before they arrived. And he was laying in his own feces and there was poo everywhere. Mum held his hand. He started to clean up. And I vividly remember my dad catching my eye for a split second, closing his eyes and then turning his head away in shame. I cannot tell you how hurtful and sad and terrible and awful that moment was. And it was at that moment where I'm like, oh God, like we've got to focus on adults. We have got to focus on adults because, nappy rash in babies, quite frankly, who cares? This situation in front of me, absolutely horrendous. This I can't even believe that this sort of situation happens. Sorry.
No,
It's just a really, you get those, you'll know it. You get those,
absolutely.
there's always that one visual, isn't there?
Yeah.
Gets you every time. Sorry.
No problem at all, Zoe. It's a familiar story. It's too familiar a story, but I think it's a story that had we not gone through these experiences, we would be blind to. I'll often recant the Chinese proverb about the boy and his father and just not knowing why things happen. This feels unfair. It doesn't feel right. Why has it happened to me? Why has it happened to us? I try and find some light in that tunnel when I have conversations like with people like you, who off the back of that could be creating something that means in the future at some point people don't have to go through those similar experiences. And whilst that doesn't bring Fred back, it doesn't make his suffering any easier, it does mean something positive came out of that. And it eases the pain and the burden on other people. Of the idea, I love the thought, I love the innovation, and I love that you're trying to bring this to light, and there will always be that link to Fred too. So I'm sure he's looking down on you right now with great pride on everything you're doing at the moment.
No, 100%. Although, to be fair, I do struggle with the thought of, whether him being the pin-up boy for fecal incontinence. I think less happy about that. But no, I mean, I think that was the turning point for us with Joy. And in fact, what's been beautiful about that journey since, I mean, we've done, we can talk a bit about the specifics, but when I start to talk about to people through this lens, adult care, caregiver burden, how terrible it's been, what we want to try and resolve through our innovation, it is unbelievable how many people resonate with it. I don't think there's anybody that I've spoken to yet that has said, I don't understand that as a problem. It is just something it's such a universal issue that there just is not enough care for our parents, our aunts, our uncles, maybe our sisters or brothers, close family, friends, where they're just getting, there's loss of dignity around the end of their life. And it doesn't matter that they're close to death. It doesn't matter. In fact, it matters more that they have that dignity, that they have that comfort towards, just help. Honestly, sometimes I just marvel at how dreadful that the situation is, and
Yeah,
and
but you're doing
I certainly hope through Joy that we can bring some peace and some comfort to these stages of life.
that's the thing. You're not just words, you're action, and that really is positive. And so, talking of action and where you are now and the journey you have been on, one of the things I loved about this story is that you have trialed your own product. Tell the audience about that. I hope everybody you're not eating anything, because
Goodness.
this is interesting.
Well, so okay, remember we're a startup. We have very limited funds. We can't afford to go out and pay people to do things for us. We have to do it ourselves. And there's two sides to this. One, we had to test the technology. We had to test that the function of these products was going to work. The principle of the design worked, and we got our prototypes. I've been modeling one on myself and one on Ed. He's husband, but he's also going to be he'll work for the company once we've finished our raise. And thank God he is my husband. But we made these prototypes, like, okay, we've got to test them. How are we going to test them? And I was like, well, we're gonna have to do a poo in them. We're actually gonna have to do a poo in them, and we can't do a poo sitting on the toilet, because that's not a fair.
That's not how it goes. Yeah.
We have to be sitting in a chair. We have to be lying down. We have to do lots of testing initially. So what we did, we needed a baseline. One joyous evening, we took some laxatives,
As you do.
went to sleep, and then in the morning, when the urge took us, first of all we donned some adult diapers, a leading brand,
Yeah.
and sat down and did a poo in a chair, and
Let nature take its course.
let nature take its course. And then cleaned up and took more laxatives that evening. Well, 8 lots took more laxatives that evening, and then repeated it with the Joyvie design, and documented the results. And I think when I tell that story, people are like, wow, that is like unmatched conviction in your technology. Well done.
Yeah.
But also a very, very good and important understanding of what it's like to have fecal incontinence. And I think, when it comes to business or startups and designing anything for the end user, you really do, or you ought to be having a good appreciation of what it is they're going through. And so for Ed and I mean, it was embarrassing. Our relationship has transversed into a completely new level of trust and admiration of each other. I mean, we just, we thought we knew each other before. This is another level entirely. But we, it was all right doing that, testing it, because we knew it was a test. But if you think back on the experience of that, it's extremely unpleasant wearing an adult diaper. You really can feel what it feels like on your skin, and it's hot and it's wet and it makes you feel dirty and unclean and it stinks. And that's how people feel. The people that have suffering with fecal incontinence, this is how they're feeling on a daily basis. And this is the reason why they tend to not leave their homes. And this is the reason why they shy away from society. And this is the reason why they feel like lesser people. And this is the reason why caregivers have such a hard job cleaning it and attending. It's such an unspoken topic. It's a very prevalent problem, and not just with palliative care, not just like my dad in the stage of life. There's lots of people that might have had an operation or have
Or
a bout of cancer that they've recovered from.
otherwise good health, however, apart from
Yeah, or like functional decline or postpartum. I mean, there's lots of different reasons why people might have fecal incontinence. Some of it's chronic, some of it's palliative, but nonetheless, it's a very, very debilitating problem. You know, it makes you feel ashamed. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed, and I don't.
that was one of my questions to you about yourself and your husband. Psychologically, I appreciate physically what you have learned, the knowledge you have gained. Psychologically, did you learn anything? And if so, what was that
I don't think I
you
can
hadn't
ever.
anticipated?
I don't think I can say that I was in fully appreciate what it's like to live with
Hmm,
fecal incontinence
of
or
course.
be a caregiver. That, you know, it was a one evening or 2 evenings or 2 days, but I did certainly felt shameful, even with Ed, who you know, we've had a child together. He's
Sure,
seen me give birth.
sure, sure.
It's kind of, I was embarrassed. You
Yeah,
know, we were very, very careful how we maneuvered around each other and spoke to each other. We were
mm,
extremely respectful of each other,
yeah,
very, very cautious to maintain as much dignity as we could, because it's very, very uncomfortable. It's a very, very vulnerable situation.
yeah. And that's two individuals who know each other in and out, let alone, I mean, it's the equivalent of you guys running the test again, but let me just turn up and I will deal with you. Yeah,
Exactly that. That's like such a good way to frame it. It's exactly that.
yeah.
It's just, you know, so I do think, as you know, was a bit of a crazy experiment, which we will have to do many more times, I should think,
Yeah.
as we build out the tech.
Just to be clear, I am not offering my services. You
No,
and your husband are going to have to sort one another out.
no,
I have
no,
done my time. I'm out.
that's it, done. No, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, some investors always ask, like, how can you prove the technology? And I was like, well, you know, we've done this testing, but there's no chance in hell I'm going to video those sessions and send it to, and you don't want to see that either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's one of those.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
No, thank
thank
you.
you very
No,
much. Yeah,
thank you.
exactly. So there you go. That's my
So, Zoe, you have done the tests. You've cleaned one another up. You've got all the data back and the information that you need. How have things advanced since then?
well, it's been very exciting. So we won another Innovate UK grant, and I can actually say that because we've got our official grant letter through. Off the
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great, like huge. Like Innovate UK grants are notoriously difficult to win, and then off the back of that, we got our first bit of funding in. So we closed a small investment round, which allowed us to unlock that grant funding, and then we've got this open funding round to raise the rest. The immediate next steps, we've got a design team we're working with. They're called D2M. Run by a guy called Phil Staunton. They can bring what I can't. So yes, I have a product design background, but we don't have the machines, the tooling capability to really start finessing the design and moving into high fidelity prototyping. So we know, we know that the technology works. But we'll start making decisions around what materials we use. I think we probably need to add in a few small features to help put them on. But what we want to avoid is too many SKUs. So SKUs are different product, different sizes. So when you buy a pair of underpants, you've got small, medium, and large.
Sure.
I think we're probably going to need to have things like extra, extra small, extra, extra large, just refining that, because there's all that always is, at this stage, it's always a payoff between perfection and cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's immediate next steps are just refining our design, moving to high fidelity prototypes, of which Ed and I will continue to do that iterative testing. And at the end, we'll start to bring in things like focus group testing. We'll have a small group of people who have fecal incontinence as well as caregivers, and then we'll start ramping up for a larger pilot that will run over the UK, and that pilot will allow us to get our class 1 medical device. And once we're in that stage, we are looking at commercializing. So that's when we really can go out to market and start making the world a better place. So easy peasy, Obi.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Nothing's going to go wrong.
I tell you what I love, and as you're talking there, I am seeing that full circle moment of the company that you set up that failed because you didn't have a clue. You know, you knew about innovation, but didn't have a clue about all of these other matters that are so important to running a successful company, to now just hearing the way you're talking about the various different elements and making sure that your ducks are in line before you go to launch, and giving consideration to the commercial aspects. Because it's one thing to have the dream, the vision and the innovation, it's another thing to actually make that happen and make that work. I think with regards to what you're trying to achieve, and you've talked about the funding and how proud you are to have achieved some of the funding that you've got so far, but you know that there's still a way to go. Because without funding, you are not going to be able to achieve your dream of honouring your father, but also honouring all those other people who suffer with incontinence in being delivering a product that helps with their dignity and returns their dignity back to them, and allows them to really grasp that. So when you talk, I just want to talk about the funding element a little bit,
Mm.
because it kind of makes sense to me, but it kind of doesn't as well, and there are others out there. So you've got this grant. Why is that so important? And how, you may not want to say how much you're trying to raise, but with all these funds that you're getting, what is it exactly that it's paying for?
So Innovate UK is non-dilutive funding. So it's a grant, means we don't have to pay it back. There's no equity exchanged. Amazing. Like, you know, it's such a great source of funding for a business, because obviously we want to try and retain as much equity as possible. But the good thing about Innovate UK is it's highly prestigious, so it holds a lot of weight, a lot of credibility. Because we won that grant, it was for that reason that we managed to onboard our investor. It's just one angel,
Okay.
quite a large sum of money, and you know we've got a couple of hundred now to develop the next phase of development. We want to raise 450,000 in total. So we have an agile round open at the moment to raise the rest of that. We're in active discussions with a number of angel investors for the short term. But yes, you're absolutely right. Funding is critical, because what it allows you to do is accelerate your design, and especially for something that's IP heavy. So we have IP. That IP, it's a very
IP meaning intellectual property.
yes, sorry.
Yeah, it's
Um,
okay. I love
it's
to pop jargon because
I
you
know,
never know
yes,
who's
I know.
listening.
I
Yeah,
know, yes, I'm guilty as charged. So intellectual property, it's very expensive to run maintain intellectual property. So, this year is going to be relatively expensive. We're taking out our what's called a PCT. Don't ask me I can't remember what
it's
that
okay.
stands for. Something clever. Someone can Google it. But
Yeah,
it basically gives you sort of worldwide coverage. And then after, once 18 months after that, and that's about, I don't know, between 6 and 8 grand. And then after that, we then have to go into national phase entry, assuming that you've had your patent granted. And that then, it's like, thousands and thousands, like it's like 10 to 1,500 or £15,000 per country that you want to protect. So, just protecting the IP alone is one thing, but we're developing an actual product, we can't, and that costs money. So I know at the moment, and, I'm no expert, but at the moment there's a big trend on AI, and these days it is possible to build a form of an MVP without having necessarily coding experience. You can do that. You can prove a version of your technology works and make it look good. Yeah. With an actual product, getting to that same standard, it's expensive. It's more expensive. I don't have that sort of cash sitting in my bank account, but you need capital to get it done, and you need to move relatively quickly. So this is what funding does. Essentially, it just allows you to de-risk your innovation for the next round of development. And allows you to accelerate because you can hire more people, you can bring on better materials, better processes, systems, etc. So it's really just about accelerating growth.
and if somebody listening wants to invest, is this open to Joe Public, or is this only open to a person of certain worth?
Exactly. Yes. So to invest in a UK company, you have to be a high net worth individual. There's a few other aspects to it. So no, this is not similar to something like crowdfunding. You would need to be a sophisticated or a high net worth individual in order to be able to invest in Joyvie or any other similar startup.
So Zoe, if a high net worth wants to invest in Joyvie, who do they contact? How do they go about doing that?
So you can go to our website, which is www.wherejoyvie.com, and that will give you access to our funding platform where you have to sign a few disclaimers saying that you are indeed a high net worth, sophisticated investor. Or you can email me at zoe@wherejoyvie.com, and I'd be happy to have a conversation. That'd be amazing.
And I do hope somebody does reach out to you.
Yeah, me too.
I am certain you are going to attain your goals, your funding goals, and I look forward to following your company and its successes over the years, because it's I think it's the cause that really gets me,
Yes.
and knowing that it is clearly something that is dear to your heart. It will be interesting. I know that your father would have been proud. Zoe, I want to talk to you about your legacy then, because you've obviously achieved so much so far, but there is still a journey to go on. When you think about the impact you want to make, not just with Joyvie, but as a leader, as a daughter, as a mother, as a woman who has survived so much, what would your dad be most proud of you about, and what would make all of this pain and all of this suffering worth it?
I think he'd be proud I didn't give up, and that I stuck, and I had conviction and I stuck to it. I think he's always been proud of me for just, like can't think of an analogy, just not giving up. I think from the Joyvie aspects, it's very clear to me we need to get Joyvie on every bottom that needs it, essentially. And there's going to be different ways that we can do that commercially. We are in constant discussions on the growth and the scale strategy, but it would make me so immensely proud of myself to see that people aren't suffering anymore because of something that happened with me and my dad. It's such a humble little story between dad and I and mum. That little humble but heartbreaking experience, which is, I hope, going to catapult into the world, genuinely change things for the better. And if I can be the leader of that and get that out there, that would make me extremely proud. And I think also what sits underneath everything that I do these days is that I want to make the path seem feasible to my daughter, my little 3-year-old dictator who she probably won't have any trouble fighting her way out into the world. But I want her to see that it's absolutely possible for a woman, regardless of her age, because remember, I'm quite old compared to
Sure.
the young, vibrant woman that I should be as a startup founder. I'm relatively old, so I want to show her that it's possible. I want to show all the other kids of her generation that it's possible. And if you know that something needs changing and there's a good rationale to doing it, just don't give up and get on with it.
You've said a few things that are really profound there for me. I think I really loved your answer, and you have knowledge that your father was proud of you. That is such a gift, because not everybody knows that when their parents pass on. So Fred, in keeping with the loving father and the man that he was, clearly has done some really good things there with his children, that that your father is proud of you. That really is something to cheer about. I think with regards to your legacy and the way you speak of your daughter and what you want for her is completely in keeping with my thoughts and process with my children, but equally on what I am trying to do here with Leadership Hacks, which is I want to show and expose what success looks like, but I want people to see the journey, because it's not linear. It is not always straightforward and simple. However, if you can persevere, you are capable of achieving your wildest dreams. If you can be consistent, disciplined, and resolute. And you have clearly been all of those things to get to this point, Zoe. Zoe, I'd like to say I really appreciate you sharing your story. I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate everything that you are doing in this space to save dignity and allow people to wrestle that back. And I am wishing you and praying for
Thank you.
every success for this business, and I will certainly be following you and hopefully checking back in a year or two to see how things are. And it would be good to get you back on the podcast, and we can talk about how many other times you've shit yourself and had to and clean yourself up.
Hopefully it's in the line of the product and not because I've had some terrible accident.
Exactly,
Touching wood,
exactly.
touching wood. Well, can I just take the opportunity to say, Obi, thank you. Thank you very much for reaching out to me via that post. This is actually my first podcast I've ever done, and I think you've just made me feel so comfortable. And I would be delighted to come back and have a chat in a year or so and tell you, how we've gone hopefully from strength to strength. But yeah, an absolute privilege. And thank you for sharing our story. I appreciate it. I'm very grateful.
No, thank you very much. Zoe, it's been a pleasure. Leadership Hackers, we'll catch you another time. Take care. Bye-bye.